Well, I got a lot of requests for this. A lot of people want to know what in the world is Lend Woman. So I'm going to explain it to you. Let's get to it. At 11 years old in central Indiana, my folks attended a Baptist church. And by default, me and my two little brothers, we attended the Baptist church. Every Sunday we'd get dressed, white shirt, bow tie, dress belt, dark trousers, and shined dress shoes. My mother always wore a dress, and my dad was always in a coat and tie. We would get to the church just before the 10 o'clock service, walk through the door, down the hall, turn to the right, and enter the big room. And the big room was where all the pews were, and on the back of the pews, of course, were the songbooks and the extra Bibles. The Reverend Henry would start the service with a prayer, and then we would all sing a song together, and then the Reverend would dismiss we kids to go up to the second floor to attend Sunday school. In Sunday school in a Baptist church, you learn lots of new stuff. There's lots of rules. One of the rules, you can't take the Lord's name in vain. Other rules, there would be no cursing, no drinking, no smoking, and no reference to the word sex of any kind. That would be sinful. The women could not wear sunback dresses, no short skirts for the girls, and no all-white pants for the boys. There would be no dancing and no tennis. No tennis. And that big picture of Jesus sitting at that table with all of his disciples and all of their food for that supper, you need to know Jesus did not drink wine. He drank grape juice. I couldn't help it. I had to raise my hand. I said, "You mean like Welch's grape juice?" Mrs. Jones said, "Yeah, something like that." And I thought to myself, wow, did we dodge a bullet? Because in my house, every Friday, my folks stopped at the local Kroger and they bought 2 big bottles of grape juice, and me and my 2 brothers, we'd go through that before the weekend was out. One Sunday morning, they released us early from Sunday school. And we were all marched down into the big room. There was about 15 of us. And we were lined up on the stage, and a lady handed each one of us a card. And we were going to read the card to the congregation. We were doing a skit, something we had never done before. So I looked at my card, and there was a word on there I didn't know. So I nudged the girl standing next to me. She was about 2 years older than I was, and I said, "What is this word?" And she looked down at my card and she says, "Whore." And I said, "Whore?" She says, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, fine." So the skit's going along, and the people in the back are requesting that we speak up. They can't hear back there. And the church didn't have a PA system. Well, that's not a problem for me. I've never had a problem projecting my voice over a crowded room. So the cards are being read, and finally it gets to me. And I bring up my card and I say, "He who has labored and heavy laden and something, 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 this whore." And the room blew up. I mean, went crazy. All the moms and all the grandmoms are throwing up their hands, they're shaking their heads, they're covering their mouths. All the grandpas and all the dads are elbowing each other. All the little kids out in the audience are going, "What happened? What did he do? What did he say? I missed it. What did he do?" I looked over at my folks. My folks were not going to make eye contact with me. They're looking off to each other, kind of got their heads bowed, as stone-faced as I have ever seen my folks. I looked over at the lady who gave me the card. She is a brand new shade of red. I looked over at the Reverend Henry. He had already turned his back. He's looking out at the congregation, and I know he's not going to turn around. Then all of a sudden, the room went dead silent, because the congregation didn't know what the girl standing next to me was about to say. So she kind of looked at me. She realized everybody was watching her. So she stood tall. She read her card. It was nothing remarkable. And the skit was over. So the lady who gave us the card motioned for us to exit the stage, down the steps, along the wall, all the way back to the entrance of the room. And as we passed by her, she collected the cards. Now I had to pass my folks walking out of the room, and they all of a sudden were not going to make eye contact with me. They were watching the Reverend Henry until I got by them. But a lot of other people had some reaction. I got the shame on you finger. I got the big eye. I got the stink eye, because everybody apparently had an opinion on what just happened. So we exit the church. We're on our way home. My dad driving in, of course, and my mom up in the front passenger seat, and we three boys in the back. And I said, "Mom," and my mother didn't even turn around. She said, "I don't want to talk about it." So I knew we're not having a conversation when we get home. So we get home and we do the standard routine. Everybody is off to their room, changing out of their Sunday clothes, folding the trousers, folding up the belt, folding the shirt and the bow tie, and putting the dress, shoes, all together in one drawer, ready for next Sunday. Well, being an entrepreneur even at age 11, I'm going to find out what that word is, because I never saw the word before, and I needed to find out why the church reacted the way they did. So I went to get the big old dictionary. And it was a big dictionary. It took 2 hands to pull it off the shelf, and it had those cuts in the side for the index. But I wasn't going to flop that dictionary open on the kitchen table. No, no. I don't want my folks asking what I'm doing. So I took the dictionary back into my room, kind of closed the door, and went to look up that word. So I'm fumbling through there, and I'm looking, and it's not in there. The word is not in the dictionary. So I'm guessing, well, maybe it's a Bible term, something in the Bible. And even if I go get the Bible, I'm not going to find it, because the Bible doesn't have an index. So basically, I just had to let it go. But I sure wasn't going to ask my folks about this word. I'd already been told by default, we're not going to be chatting about any of that. So I put the dictionary back on the shelf, and I had to let it go. Sometime later, maybe a year or more, I heard a woman say that word. But we weren't in church. I'm not sure where I was, and I'm not sure what she was talking about. But eventually I make my way over to this lady, and I said, "Ma'am, what was the word you used?" And she said, "Whore." And I said, "How do you spell that?" And she kind of looked at me and she said, W-H-W. It starts with a W. No wonder I couldn't find it. I got to get back to the dictionary. So it's back to the dictionary. I get that big old dictionary. I get myself sequestered off into my room, make sure nobody's coming down the hall. I get that dictionary open. I get back to the back of the dictionary where the W's are, and I look very closely, and there's the word. It's a real word. It's not just a biblical term. It's a real word. So I get myself all squared up to read the definition so I can understand what happened in church. It was no help. It said, lend woman. And that's all it said. What is lend woman? I have no idea. So I'm sitting in front of a dictionary. So, okay, fine. I'm not going to look up the word woman. I have a mom, I have an aunt, I have grandmothers. I'm not looking that up. So I'll look up lend. So I flip around in the dictionary and there's the word lend, and I'm thinking, okay, this will tell me something. And it didn't tell me anything. It just said temporary ownership. Temporary ownership of a woman? Makes no sense. And why didn't it say temporary ownership of a man? But it didn't say that. It just said lend woman temporary ownership. Well, that was no help at all. So I put the dictionary back on the shelf, and I guess I'm just going to have to let it go. I'm never going to find out why the church erupted the way they did, and I'm surely not going to bring this word up in my house. Well, as I got a little older and my vocabulary and life experiences were increasing, I did come up with the idea that maybe there's a sexual reference to this word, because there's nothing sexual in the dictionary about it at all, but maybe there is a sexual reference to the word, and that might explain why the folks in church erupted the way they did. So I had to leave it alone. I couldn't get any more information. I looked it up. I had to let it go. Now at age 15, I'm walking through my hometown. I'm downtown, and I'm passing in front of the public library. And the public library was the building with the great big pillars. And out front on the sidewalk is a man handing out brochures to a crowd of people. I don't know what this is about. And people are kind of listening to him, and he's talking about city council and city taxes and the old bridge and the high school and stuff I really don't have any interest in. And I'm in the back, and I just standing next to a man, and I said, "What is this? I've never seen anything like this before." And he said, this is a guy, a politician, who wants to be on the city council. But you have to be elected to be on the city council, and the election is next month. So he's out here passing out his brochure, telling people who he is so they'll recognize his name when it comes time to vote. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I've never seen anything like that. And I was just about to leave. And then he asked the people for money. And women were opening their purses, reaching into their wallets, and pulling out folding money. And the men reaching in their back pocket, pulling out folding money. I'm not talking about pocket change. I'm talking about real money. And they all put it in a basket down there by his feet. I looked at the guy next to me and I said, "Does he get to keep that money?" And he says, "Yeah, it's his now." You know, he's a politician and he can do anything with that money he wants. And he'll probably print up some more brochures, and he'll probably print up a little button with his name on it. And he might even want to talk about his campaign on the radio station. And everything costs money. And we had an AM radio station in our town. And I said to him, "Wow, I've never seen anything like that." And he said, "Well, right now you can buy him cheap." And I'm not really sure what you can buy him. You can buy him cheap. He says, "Yeah, right now you can. You can buy him." I said, "Is that anything like temporary ownership?" And the guy looked at me and he said, young man, you have hit the nail right on the head. That's exactly what's happening here. Temporary ownership of a politician. You got it. Well, I was kind of proud of myself, but now I got to walk home. I live on 8th Street, and I got 8 blocks to walk, but I do that every day. That's nothing. But on the way home, I put it together. On the way home, you can buy a politician, man or woman, and if you buy them early, you can buy them cheap. And you'll get temporary ownership of them. And temporary ownership is the reference to lend woman, which is the definition of the word, the W word, that I shouted in church. Lend woman. I was 15 years old when I put that together. Nothing to do with sex, because that's not in the dictionary. So today, if you look up the W word in the dictionary or online, you will get a huge paragraph of definition, and it will include women and men. But the word has a synonym, and the synonym starts with the letter P, but the synonym is illegal in this country unless you're a politician. And then you can sell yourself for as much as you want, as often as you want, and you get to keep the money. Lend woman. I was 15 when I put that together. So I know this is running a little long, and there's probably another 10 minutes of lend woman I need to explain. So I'll try to figure out how to put a link behind this part 1 so you can go directly to part 2. This is Dallas. Thanks for listening.